if Christianity is true and it's the better explanation of reality, atheists who deny God must be living in denial of reality at some point.
We're living in denial of reality. Now, I think one thing that you can agree on me with is that the first 5 books of the Bible are bullshit. The Pentateuch, bullshit.
So how do we make the case that there actually is a God? When my daughter, who's now 16, was about 8 years old, she asked me a question. She said, "Papa, how do we know that God is true?" is what she said. How do we know that the God we're talking about here is actually real, is her point. And I have to think about this now, and this is what I do kind of with adults, but now I got my own daughter who's a youngster who I now need to explain this to. And as I'm pondering how to answer it, all of a sudden something came into my mind that, as I look back on it now, I think captures my whole approach to this enterprise. And here's what I said to her. I said, "Honey, the reason that we believe that God is true is because he's the best explanation for the way things are."
I don't even know how to process that bullshit. Like, how is God the best explanation for anything? I don't understand that entire concept. Like, I just don't understand it whatsoever.
Well, that's because you look for natural explanations for things.
Right.
And so, and you don't assume when you don't have a natural explanation, you don't assume supernatural. Because even when we don't have or currently know a natural reason or explanation, doesn't mean there isn't one. We've spent a lot of time in human history not knowing shit and explaining things as we go that we've used gods for in the past. Humans have used gods to explain all kinds of things in the past that as we've learned more, we know the actual natural explanations.
Yeah.
So there's still tons of things we don't have answers for, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that a God did it.
I've heard design arguments out the ass. I've never found any of them compelling that shows me that, God exists because the evidence is all around us or something like that.
Oh, surely you're compelled by the walking DNA.
Oh, God.
They're machines, honey. Machines that God built and put in your body.
Yeah, obviously. So I find that the whole, God is the best explanation for everything doesn't hold up when you start to really think about how our reality operates. Why does the Earth revolve around the sun? Well, we can explain that with physics. And I feel like what Greg Koukle is saying is that, well, God put it in its orbit and God makes it rotate and God makes it spin around the sun.
Mm-hmm. Or why does it rain?
God did it.
The gaze, John, the gaze. Hurricanes are because of the gaze.
Well, hurricanes, you just said rain.
Well, whatever.
But God still did the hurricanes too.
because of the gays.
because of gays or anything that you currently hate. Rock and roll music is why hurricanes exist.
Yeah, Elvis Presley used to be like evil, a satanic dude, right? And like by the time the 80s rolled around back in country, in country rural type of areas, Elvis Presley is what those religious folks listen to because, the new evil music of the 80s and all the sexified stuff.
You brought up DNA earlier, but DNA is a good example of how if God engineered this reality, what in the fuck was he thinking? Because
He's a terrible engineer.
Well, yeah, because like with DNA and how organisms propagate on this planet, at least, it's such an inefficient system. Mm-hmm. It's prone to errors. I just don't understand. Like even if a God were to design a system like DNA that was meant to change and have its organisms evolve, right? More of a theistic evolution sort of point of view, wouldn't he be able to do it better to where like genetic diseases aren't a thing?
One would think. Or the thing that irritates me the most is the chicken and beer pipe being next to the air pipe. Like, that's some bullshit. And like the fact that they have to partially share a pipe, that's dumb.
Yeah. You know who's to blame for all this, right?
Probably Eve.
Fucking
because
bitch
women,
Eve.
Yeah, because women are just the worst.
They love to eat them fruit salads and
Fruit salad is fucking delicious.
See what I'm talking about? That's why we're here, y'all.
See, my drink is basically fruit salad.
Let me just say that again, because it's so important. The reason that we believe in God is because he's the best explanation for the way things are.
You repeating it didn't actually make it true.
Well, and so take a second and actually think about like what Genesis says, and as far as like the Bible and how it explains how reality operates. You know, in the New Testament, you get Jesus making water from wine in John. How does that fucking work right there? I mean, you know, magically, because he waved his hand and magically transformed it. Now, if you understand this from a purely secular view of the Bible, you'll know that this miraculous generation of food is the same kind of miracle that was done by Elisha and Elijah. They did it in a little bit different ways, but it's still the exact same thing. And so that would have been the ultimate inspiration for that story of transforming water to wine.
You know, if there are any Christians out there that know how to transform water to wine and would be willing to teach somebody, I need to get a gift certificate for Shannon Q.
I knew it was going to be Shannon. It's like, how's she going to work Shannon into this?
You know, if we're talking about wine, I'm going to get Shannon involved.
And what I was doing with her, even though I didn't explain it at the time, is I was introducing the notion of explanatory power. What I mean by that is you see things in the world and you're simply asking the question, what best explains these significant features of the real world? And if you have an idea that explains them well and a contrary idea that doesn't, then the first idea has better explanatory power and therefore is more likely to be true.
Let's run some experiments in this fucking STR course, shall we? Rain. What did we think it was because of before?
God.
Now we have come to understand the water cycle. So it kind of seems like maybe God doesn't do that.
I'm just going to stick with God's pissing on everybody.
Snow. Is God coming on everyone?
Oh, I was just going to say God's frozen piss.
Frozen? It's not yellow. Maybe he just drinks a lot of water, so it's like that clear piss.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could do this with everything.
Lightning.
Huh? Lightning, yeah.
Volcanoes.
Volcanoes are from the devil. We all know this.
Oh, well, yeah, they come from, down under the surface of the earth, so they're in hell.
Yeah. But you could run this thought experiment or, these things with anything that he could attribute to God. And if you come up with a natural explanation for it, that natural explanation will always be a better explanation than God did it.
With significantly more explanatory power.
Right.
I don't understand how he uses these words and thinks they actually apply to God did it.
I have no fucking clue. Like, why? Because this entire video seems to be an argument from God did it. Like, I mean, it's just like, oh, God did it, and that's a better explanation.
Which to me is one of the most irritating things about apologetics is the God did it argument. Like, because basically, if you attribute everything to God did it, you aren't learning anything.
No.
It's the statement of the dumb, like dumb, deaf, and blind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. You just don't know anything. You don't learn anything. And because you can always point to God did it, there's no motivation to learn something. And so you just shut it off. And that really bothers the shit out of me because it takes so much out of life to just not learn anything. Because everything you attribute to God. And that's annoying.
It is very annoying. Fuck Greg Koukle.
Now, just a little hint here. I want to let you in on a strategic insight. For us as Christian theists, we have a powerful ally. And what is that? We have reality on our side.
I'm
is
sorry,
like God's
what?
on our side. Oh my God.
Reality is on the Christian side.
I just got transported straight back to high school. I went to a Catholic school, by the way, and we would play sports ball against teams who were also Catholic schools. So this is also kind of weird, but we would chant God's on our side, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you'd have effectively both sides were saying the same thing.
Shh, doesn't matter.
God only loves the winners.
I mean, that has to be true, right?
It kind of seems like it. I really don't understand how God is on the Christian side of things, or how
reality,
how reality is on the Christian side of things. Like, that doesn't make sense. Have you read the Bible?
Something explanatory power, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, just think about it. Everything in the Old Testament is ahistorical. So right off the bat, it just doesn't make any kind of fucking sense to say that reality is on God's side or the Christian side.
So I mean, there are some historical things, but a lot of the stories are not actual things that happen in history.
Well, okay, so I'm like, we're disregarding the minute historical things that are in that, because like the minute historical things are like, there was a King David. Sure, we have evidence of that.
Well, I mean, there are some stories like in Kings and Chronicles and stuff where we know that certain kings in certain areas took over, conquered other areas, and that's in the Bible, and we know that those things happened. So, I mean, there is some historical information there, but it's like it's not the point of the story. You know what I mean?
Well, right. That's what I mean. Getting these minute details of like, well, who was in power, who took over after who, like those things I would consider, as far as the context of the Old Testament goes, to be minute details. But I mean, like, fucking, who's that guy with the hair in Judges? What?
The guy with the hair?
Yeah, in Judges, he ripped the lion.
Samson?
Samson.
Okay.
Samson was probably not a real person.
Oh, probably not. But I mean, there are some prophecies that did actually happen.
Well, yeah, but
or at least
they were
parts
most
of
likely
them.
written after the fact, though.
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, those are things that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that prophecy is real, but there are some things written by this, quote unquote prophets that said they were prophecies that were things that actually did happen. Now, whether I'm not making a judgment on whether they happened before or after, like if it was written before or after, because I don't know. I'm just saying there are real things that did happen, but overall, there are a lot of things in the Old Testament that are things that are not based in reality.
In the context of what the Old Testament was supposed to be communicating, I feel the parts that it gets right are really
minimal.
Well, not only minimal, but they're really aside from like the point of all the stories. So when I say the Old Testament is ahistorical, I mean that the main reason why the Old Testament was written, namely to give like a historical record of the Israelite people and what they did. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that on the whole is ahistorical, because those events did not happen. And that's not to say that they don't get a few minute details right within the text, but I'm saying the overall message of the Old Testament, the overall purpose of the Old Testament is not on is against reality. It's ahistorical.
Okay.
So, I mean, I agree that there are minute details that are correct, but they are minimal. They only slightly matter to the main themes that are contained within.
I just think it depends on what book you're talking about. I think it really matters what part of the Old Testament you're talking about. So there are some areas that are actually really historical and other areas that are not historical at all. It's just a story. I don't think you can lay a blanket over it and say this is the thing. But that's just my opinion. If you think it's totally ahistorical, that's fine. I just think the context of each of the different books matters.
I mean, I can agree with that the context of each book matters, but
because they have different points. There's not one overall point of the Old Testament, that each of the areas have different functions.
Mm-hmm. And I want to explain what I mean by that. I got this insight from Francis Schaeffer. And first he noted that if Christianity is true, then it is an accurate view of reality. And that would mean that all human beings are really made in the image of God, and all human beings must live in the world that God made, even if they don't believe it, all right? Therefore, if Christianity is true, and it's the better explanation of reality, atheists who deny God must be living in denial of reality at some point.
We're living in denial of reality. Now, I think one thing that you can agree on me with is that the first 5 books of the Bible are bullshit. The Pentateuch, bullshit.
Well, so there's a lot of stuff in them that are wrong. But as far as like the rules and laws that the Israelite people had to live by, those were things. Those were rules that the Israelite people had to live by. And so, I didn't like the laws, but were they bullshit? I mean, it's what they decided their code was going to be. Just like any other society is going to have their code.
Well, I'm not saying that they didn't hold to those laws. Because like when I think about the first 5 books, I mean, I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of the story and not the, I guess, legalistic portions of the first 5 books.
Oh, well, I mean, like Leviticus and Deuteronomy and things like that, like those were, I feel like the story the story is mainly a Genesis story, right? Numbers is kind of not really a story kind of based thing.
Well, I mean, it kind of is, and Numbers is completely wrong on the numbers of Israelites. Yeah. The patriarchs of the Old Testament, they're bullshit and not historical.
I mean, that we know of. Yeah, we don't have any evidence that they existed for sure.
I was not trying to say that the Israelites didn't hold to the laws that are laid down.
Well, I mean, those were real laws that the Israelites lived by.
I know, and I'm just clarifying that I wasn't trying to say that they weren't laws.
But see, that's what I mean. Like, religion is so nuanced in general. I just hesitate to put like a big blanket over like, the Pentateuch is all bullshit. Well, because it's not, because the rules that they lived by were real rules that they lived by.
I don't know. They're kind of bullshit rules.
I mean, just because you don't like them doesn't mean that they're bullshit.
I don't know.
Therefore, sooner or later, atheists who deny God's world, reality, are going to bump into the world as it really is. And what I mean here is they're going to affirm some feature of reality.
I know I'm interrupting him, but before he says that we are ignoring reality, this comes from the same motherfucker that thinks that prayer does something in reality.
I mean, they do. They really do think that prayer does do something.
I mean, this is like coming from the thoughts and prayers crowd.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's bullshit.
Oh, there was a mass shooting over here. We need to pray.
Mm-hmm.
If only they had Jesus. Oh, did you not hear? The shooter was actually a priest who prayed 5 times a day or more.
And he shot up a church.
And he shot up a church. So, I mean, I don't know what your prayers are supposed to do. Kind of seems like if God has a handle on this shit, he wanted that dude to shoot up that group of people. Like, it just amazes me how somebody can be so deluded in their position that they sit there and psychically transmit their thoughts and wishes to a deity who is all knowing, by the way. He knows the future. He and not just knows the future, he is
He's set the course.
He set the course. He has created the path that we are on. He knows what's going to happen. But no, you are going to psychically transmit your wishes to him, and he's going to be like,
and
well,
bend
shit.
God's will. Stupid. But I don't know. I have to wonder, this guy. So before you pause it the last time, he was talking about how if Christianity is true and reality is based on Christianity, well, what parts. All of it can't be true. We know that for a fact because there's too much that's contradictory within Christianity. So it can't all be true. So what parts, if what is true? Again, it's one of those throw a blanket on it and say a buzzword. That just doesn't work for me.
Well, that part right there seemed to be more of a possible, therefore plausible fallacy, or possible, therefore probable fallacy. And basically it's saying, well, it's possible that, you know, this thing. So it's like, it's possible that God exists. And it's possible that if God exists, then he created reality, or, you know, he controls everything. So it's therefore probable that atheists are delusional.
But it's also possible that big fucking rainbow snake in Australia created everything. So I don't know why. I guess I don't understand from a Christian's perspective. I don't understand why it is more probable that your God is a thing and over all of the others. That doesn't make sense to me. Why is your claim so, like, what gives your claim so much more merit?
I mean, they got a book.
The other religions have books too.
Is there a giant rainbow snake book?
I mean, I don't know, but I did a YouTube video on it, so there's that.
Sometimes without even realizing it, that makes no sense given their worldview, but makes perfect sense given our worldview.
Everything makes perfect sense when you just say God did it and look no further.
Yeah. And also, I would love to know, which I think he's about to go into it, but I'd love to know exactly, like, what does a Christian worldview explain better than a secular worldview? I'm not going to say atheist worldview, because I don't think atheism is a worldview. I think worldviews can be atheistic, but
Sure.
I don't think that atheism itself is a worldview.
Agreed.
But there are secular worldviews, and I wonder what kind of thing out there could be better explained on God than on fucking nature.
Fuck if I know.
Apparently, it has to do with Dawkins.
God, we haven't even got to Dawkins yet.